actually think that was 2022 that was actually the full accountability part.
Okay.
Yeah, when it came in. Now that I'm thinking more about it, I mean, everything stems back to 2020. And it wasn't, and I'm not saying 2020 is where everything in my depression life came from, which we'll get into later in a different episode, but that's where it came out in the worst ways, was from 2020 on. And even to this day, it's still a struggle, and it's been a constant struggle. But with pulling accountability back into it, holding myself accountable for my actions, whether it's at home, at the gym, at work, with my friends, with my family, it doesn't matter. Holding myself accountable has made things that much easier. Because instead of blaming and being mad, I can take my own ownership. I can take my own accountability in whatever action I take, whatever it is. And that helps my mood. That helps dictate my mood. Okay, I messed up. I'm going to own up to it and say I did it. I'm accountable for what this action was. Now let's fix the problems.
Alrighty, welcome guys, another podcast at the round table here with my brother Dustin.
How's it going?
What's going on, brother?
Oh, not much. Another lovely morning.
I know, man. It's Utah looked beautiful yesterday. I'm sure it'll look great today if the clouds aren't out. It's just it always amazes me, man. Seriously, to walk out and just.
Well, you got a good view right out your door too. So
I know every time we leave here, we're like,
yeah.
That's pretty nice.
Every time I walk out, I'm like, yeah, I like the view. If it weren't for the street, it'd be a lot better, right?
I know, man. It'd be nice and quiet. But yeah, man. Thanks for another episode here today. I know we're going to be touching on a great topic, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And that's accountability.
Yep.
Being able to have that accountability with each other. But we'll talk about some of the things that we'll hit on. So personal accountability, right? We're gonna be touching on the team, how to hold a team accountable, and leadership in accountability. That obviously flows into whenever you're trying to either be accountable or hold somebody accountable. You have that leadership style of it, and then kind of how that flows into our day to day. Kind of culturally and in the community in itself. And then we'll talk on some of the resistance that we see whenever you're trying to be, whether you're trying to hold or be accountable yourself. So I think that's a good overlay of kind of some of the topics and that we'll end up hitting in this episode. And let's just kick it right off, man. I think it's a good starting point. So I think the first one being, personal ownership or ownership in your own, whether it be fitness or whatever personal is to you, however you want to attack ownership. What is something that I guess that you can call out right now and say, you're taking ownership of it?
The biggest thing to me when it comes to accountability and ownership is holding your word. If you say you're going to do it, do it. And there's still pieces and parts. I mean, we're not gurus. We don't know it all. We're not going to be perfect. Nobody is. But just sticking to your word. If you tell somebody you're going to be there, show up. If you tell your spouse you're going to do something, do everything you can to make sure that gets done.
Right.
You tell yourself something, that's almost more important. Show up and do what you need to do. If you're going to tell yourself you're going to the gym at 5 and you were like, it's 10 now, oh well, I'm just not going to go. You're not doing yourself any favors. You're not holding yourself accountable.
Right. No.
At least in my eyes. So.
No, I think that's a good, I guess, like overview of kind of the accountability part. I think for me, one of the biggest things when it came to the accountability part, because like you said, you can focus on your marriage, you can focus on your health, and I think whatever you're doing, you're going to have to try to focus on one or the other. You're going to need to dial that in whenever it comes to owning whatever's happening in your life.
Yeah.
And I think, for me, there's always been that sense of ownership. It's kind of what we talked about in some of the other episodes when it came to the alcoholism or being a certain way that my father was, right? I never used that as an excuse. And like you said, we're not gurus. We don't have like all the answers, but all I can take off or take information from is what I'd been through and, what I've seen. And for myself, it was really, growing up with a father that was kind of, not kind of, he was more of an abuser. He was, an alcoholic. I never wanted to use that as an excuse. I never wanted to put it on him because ultimately I had to live the life, right?
Yeah.
I'm the one that's going to live with the consequences if I did something. And so I always looked at it that way. And, kind of growing up, kind of when I got married and all that type of stuff, I drank pretty heavily. I could say there was an issue. There was a problem there. I can honestly say that. But I had to take ownership of that. I couldn't put it on somebody else. I couldn't put it on the current situation that I was going through. I have to take ownership of it. And, that kind of flowed into move past, fast forward into my relationship with Tay, which was, I started drinking again. I was, drinking pretty heavily, doing, dumb stuff. And I had to take a step back and not blame the circumstances and the situations that were happening in our life in that moment, because that's what I was doing. I was playing almost like a victim card, to be honest. I was like, oh, this sucks. This is hard. I don't want to deal with it. But guess what? Like numbing myself to alcohol and all that type of stuff, putting myself into the circumstances that necessarily aren't good.
It doesn't help.
It didn't help. And I had to take full ownership of the situation and say, I'm having this emotion and I'm having these feelings, and I need to own up to them and deal with them head up and fix my relationship, deal with whatever we were going through at the time, instead of just pushing it to the side. But it was a hard part to take ownership in.
Yeah.
Because it's easier to blame somebody else. It's easier to, oh, well, this situation just sucks. You know what I mean? Go ahead.
So with all that, let me ask you, how long did it take you, do you think, to recognize this and say, okay, this is where I need to hold myself accountable?
How long did it take me?
Yeah. So whether you're talking your first marriage or your current one, like where did you roughly, how long did it take you, would you say, to be like, okay, I need to hold myself accountable for what I'm doing? What changed and what changed? What do you feel like you're like, okay, this was my turning point?
Mm-hmm. I think, and I'll speak to the most current situation, right? Which my current relationship, that's what I feel like can talk most comfortably about right now, because it's more, newer. But
it also has been the one that's led to a lot of this too. So yeah, definitely. Let's start with that one.
So for me, in the moment, I'll kind of give you a background just so you understand the situation. So, Taylor and I, we got pregnant. She kind of went through she'd went through a ectopic pregnancy. So that's ultimately what it ends up causing. The baby gets stuck in one of I think it's one of the tubes or something like that. And pardon me if I'm wrong, but that's what I remember. Long story short, she ended up losing the baby. And we were pretty excited, right? It's a big step anytime you're having a kid, and so it was pretty traumatizing. And kind of, her going through that stuff, and and I was excited, she was excited, and then when it happened, it caused us to really like clash at each other, because I didn't know how to deal with the situation. I didn't know how to comfort her. I didn't know what she needed. I mean, I guess it's kind of stupid to say that, but like I like to think of myself, I'm pretty dumb, dude. Like I'll admit it. I'm smart in some areas, but when it comes to that type of stuff, like sympathy and empathy, like I'm working on that. Like it's not something that
it's not our realm.
No, it doesn't come natural to me. It's something that I really try to just show that to people. And so when that situation happened, I just wasn't attacking it appropriately. I was more cold. I was like, trying to deal with it myself. And to be honest, I look back and I was like a piece of garbage. You know what I mean? I just kind of let her deal with the situation. And even though I was there, she was dealing with it alone.
Yeah.
And so my way of like dealing with the situation was to drink, to really drink. You know, I was drinking pretty heavily, and we ended up having a conversation, and she literally just told me, like, this is kind of what I'm feeling. And in that conversation, it was very easy. It would have been very easy for me to be like, well, like, I'm dealing with something too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just start playing the blame game.
Mm-hmm. And we ended up having a conversation, I literally just like, okay, I needed to take a step back. And because I love her, when she was talking to me, it like triggered something different in me to look at the situation differently. And it's gonna be weird to say this, but like, I remember like my mom and my dad in that moment, and I know that my dad probably been like, shut up, like, you're being ridiculous, just kind of let my mom deal with it. So I just, when she told me, I just had to take a step back, and I was like, okay, what am I doing wrong? What can I do to make the situation better? If she's expressing a sense of hurt or a sense of she needs help, and I'm not being responsive to that because of my own needs or my own pain, I couldn't live with that when I like started actually analyzing the situation. So long story short, I don't think there was a specific like a timeline. It was more of a because there was a situation or something that had happened, a conversation, to be honest. That's what caused me to take ownership of it. But if she would have never had that, I don't know if I would have been able to take full accountability that quick. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, is it safe to say that after that that's when you started taking a lot more accountability as far as your relationship goes?
100%. 100%. Yeah, because it was, I want to say it's forced, but it was a conversation that needed to be had so that I could understand how my lack of accountability was affecting our relationship.
So let me ask you this. I know you have had like a fitness journey, you went, we've talked about it before, doctor, all this. Was this particular conversation you're talking about before or after the doctor told you, hey, you're going to end up just like your dad?
It was before.
It was before.
It was before.
So this was the start to your accountability, then, you would say, kind of a thing. You started with the emotional accountability, and then you started with holding yourself physically accountable.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, because it was definitely before I was still pretty heavy at that point, and that kind of led into other things. But as we progress, that's when, I think a year or so or 6 months after that's when we visited the doctor and all that type of stuff. So, and that was due to, making sure that I was good.
Yeah.
My body was performing the way it needed to. So it was kind of, that's how I know that the timeline leads up into that. But yeah, it's
that's good. That's good information. I mean, that's good to know that, sometimes it takes just as simple as a conversation, and you as a person, and we can only speak from men here because that's what we both are. Sometimes it takes us taking a step back to say, okay, what the hell could I have done differently, or what did I do? Where's my accountability in this? Because a lot of times I feel like as men, or society, which we can get into later too, doesn't want to take accountability for their own actions.
We don't.
And that's a huge issue.
Back to the way we started the conversation. If you don't take accountability, it's easier to point your finger at somebody else.
Oh,
it is like, call it what it is. It's a form of protection for yourself, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And I want to ask you the same question, and kind of think about something personal, or maybe a situation that you had to take ownership on. But before we get into that, I'll let you ponder on that. But I'm reading a book called The Inner Work, and I've never read it before. It's a first time read, and in that book, it's really, there is a part of accountability, kind of walks you through, and it's what I've got from the book. It's very new. I'm only a couple pages in, but the understanding that I'm getting is just from the very few pages is you control your own destiny, which we kind of know, right? But you also control how you view the world. And it leads into accountability, because he talks about nobody can take your happiness, your freedom, all these love away from you. And like it challenged me to be. I was like, well, and I'm like, and then they go further into like, well, think about it. Like you control all those emotions.
Yeah.
People can do certain things, I guess, to hurt you. Love, right? People can do things to try to take your freedom away. Okay. But realistically, you still have control of how you view the situation. It's all about your perspective and how you take accountability for. I'm not going to blame somebody for my situation. Okay, this person hurt me, but I can view it to be like, okay, that was a great learning experience. How can I move forward?
Yeah.
That's the beautiful thing about where we are now. That's taking accountability for yourself, not for how much pain somebody else has or how much somebody else is hurting you, but just take full accountability. Okay, this situation sucked. How can I move forward? Because it's an I thing. It's not, you can be mad at me, but guess what? That's like that's you.
Yeah, that's a me problem.
I'm not living with those emotions. Yeah. You live with them. I move on. That's taking accountability for my emotions. Not, well, because you're mad at me, now I'm mad. No, and now my day's fucked up. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And we've said that. I know I've said it. Like, oh, well, you
ruined my day.
You pissed me off. I'm talking to my wife. You made me angry, and you yelled at me. So now I'm having a bad day. Well, dude, grow the hell up, dude. Like, put your fucking big boy pants on, grab your, and let's move on. Like, and so I just wanted to throw that in because.
No, that's a very good point. Because you are responsible, and if I remember exactly, it was Andy Frisella that said it. It's you get in a car wreck, and instead of letting that 10 minutes ruin your entire day, get over it. It happened. It's done. It's over with. Move on. Same with anything, any conversation, and I'm still working on that. It's not. Sometimes it's way easier than others because there's times that I, got irritated at hell at work, and I feel like I'm over it, but maybe at the end of the day, I realize that there was still pieces and parts of it bugging me. Granted, I didn't let it go as far as I used to. We've talked about it multiple times. We're still working on all this, guys.
We're humans, man. Yeah. We're not perfect beings. So, but yeah, man, no, I agree. And we've shared stories, right? But, so hit on that, man. I think before we move on to team, kind of building a team culture of accountability, can you think of something that?
So my biggest one was, when 2020 started, I started to slowly take accountability for myself. I started to go to the gym. And then they closed, and I was like, well, it is what it is. But then
we don't talk about 2020, by the way.
Yeah, right. Okay. We forgot about that year already. But and then I started to go into this depression slope, and we started working out, and you guys held me accountable to show up to the gym. But the biggest one where it really kind of was a mind switch. The wife and I were having some issues. And it got pretty bad, like to the point that we were debating divorce, like pretty seriously. And I don't remember the words, but I had to really step back and look. And it's like, okay, if I do not change the way I am, everything I've worked for up to this point is gone. And at that point, it was an instant click. It was, okay, well, I'm going to accept my responsibility for this. This is my fault. This is not yours. You did nothing wrong. This is all me and how I acted. My depression, everything just took over. And now I'm going to do everything I can to fix it. That's when I started, therapy and everything like that. And since things have gotten better, but every day I try to look and see what I can take accountability for, no matter what it is. But that's honestly the biggest one was when I was faced with, do I want to lose my wife and seeing my kids every single day to the point that I see my kids on the weekends or maybe a couple times a week, and I no longer have the person that has supported me through everything. Mm-hmm. And up to this point, it had gotten pretty bad even internally, but she was still there for me.
Right.
So I had to start taking accountability for my actions, the words that I'm using, how I'm acting. So that's kind of led into a lot more of my accountability growth personally.
Well, that's it's a great story. It's great. Thanks for sharing that, because we don't know these things. What other people are going through all the time, right? And
behind closed doors, you never know what's going on. On the surface, everything can look great.
And I believe that's how it should be, anyways. I don't think people should be airing their stuff out, even though we air it out on here. But it's more of like I guess it's the daily thing. If you're like, oh my, people, and this is you, I probably don't have you on my Facebook because I delete people that do this type of stuff. But start posting there, my husband sucks, and then 2 days later, oh, we're out on vacation.
Yep.
My husband's an asshole. He cheated. Oh, we're on a date. Like, you get deleted like pretty instantly. I don't have people like that anymore on my Facebook. But I think it's interesting to hear your story, because it sounds like it came from, because it's the same thing. You valued something so much, which is your family, your wife, your kids, that you were willing to take accountability for what was going on and try to fix the situation. Is there something that, like, and then we can move on, but are you like able to say that when that was happening, was it hard for you to take accountability? I know for myself it was. I'll lay it out on that. For me, man, my ego was huge, dude. I'm like, this is not like it. It was like getting stabbed. It was that hard to say, okay, Ben, like, just take ownership, even though nothing would have happened other than my relationship got better. Was it hard for you to like take that hit, I guess?
No.
To your ego?
I don't think it was, because I was so low anyways. There wasn't much ego. There wasn't much of anything there. I mean, it was I was, if not the lowest, so close to the lowest that no, it was the easiest thing I could have done at that point in time, honestly. Because like I said, it was the only lower I could have got was to lose everything. And at that point, it's, well, what do you want? If this is really what I want, I need to take accountability. So no, honestly, it was the easiest thing I've done probably in a really long time.
Okay.
Was to just take ownership and say, you're right, I did fuck up. Like, let's what do I need to do? Where do we need to go? How do I need to fix this? Like, if there's something I need to do, you just need to tell me. These are my plans.
Mm-hmm.
If there's anything else that you think, I will look into it. I'll see and see what we can do.
No, I like that. I think based on that, I think it's a good, to summarize it for me, kind of what I hear, and what I see in the commonality of the situations. That they're similar, but for me, what I'm hearing from us is like, in those moments, it was the fear of losing everything that you had built, whether it be your relationship, your family, your lifestyle, all that, because all that changes, right? When you lose a family dynamic, a good family, togetherness. But it sounds like that's, so people that, are hearing this, really, I guess, because you were low, you were super low. You could have, it would have been easy to be like, well,
like,
I'm low, just lose it all, F it, throw it, whatever. It would have been super easy, I guess, to do something like that. But I guess if the way I look at it, if I'm hearing this, from an outsider's perspective, which I am, but, if I'm a listener, what I hear and what I've kind of learned from the situation is just to be able to recognize, that you don't have to, you can be at the lowest, you can be even at the highest, but the accountability part you have to really set something as a goal, something that you really don't want to lose, so that you can make yourself accountable, whether it be in fitness or, your marriage. If you don't want to die, or prematurely, we're all going to die, but if you don't want to die prematurely to a heart attack or to whatever, diabetes, you have to take an accountability of the decisions you've made up to that point and then change them.
I actually think that was 2022 that was actually the full accountability part.
The full, okay.
Yeah, when it came in, now that I'm thinking more about it. I mean, everything stems back to 2020.
I know.
And it wasn't, and I'm not saying 2020 is where everything in my depression life came from, which we'll get into later in a different episode, but that's where it came out in the worst ways, was from 2020 on. And even to this day, it's still a struggle, and it's been a constant struggle. But with pulling accountability back into it, holding myself accountable for my actions, whether it's at home, at the gym, at work, with my friends, with my family, it doesn't matter. Holding myself accountable has made things that much easier. Because instead of blaming and being mad, I can take my own ownership. I can take my own accountability in whatever action I take, whatever it is. And that helps my mood. That helps dictate my mood. Okay, I messed up. I'm going to own up to it and say I did it. I'm accountable for what this action was. Now let's fix the problem instead of dwell on it. I owned up. So, just add that in there.
I love it, man. I think it's 2020. You know, that was the year where a lot of people got broke. Well, most people got broken, but if you didn't use it as a learning experience to see how a situation can go from bad to good, because there was a lot of things that happened that were bad, I'm sure, to a lot of people. But also think of how many people exploded during that time. How much growth people got during that. So, thanks for sharing that, man. I think it's great. So the next one I think that we talked about is a team dynamic, right? It's kind of like
I think we could easily lump leadership and team together, because in a lot of ways they're the same.
I agree. In
a lot of ways there's differences, but
you can definitely be a leader, and then but because you have to lead yourself before you can lead others. But let's do that. So we'll start with the leadership part and then flow it into the team dynamic. Yeah. So leadership obviously being, like I said, you need to be able to lead yourself before you can lead others. That's what I've always known.
Yeah, and this might be a little bit more on your realm than mine, because I'm not.
Don't say it.
People look up to me like a leader, but in my current role, I am not the leader. Let's word it that way, because I am a leader at heart. I do tend, and I lead my family, or help lead my family. But as far as a work dynamic currently, I am not in the leadership role. So it's going to be, I don't feel like I have as much to talk on when it comes to that. Because when I was in that manager leadership role, I was not as efficient as I should and could have been. Okay. Just to be completely upfront and honest.
And I'll be honest with you, I don't, in my job, my 9 to 5, I don't hold a leadership position, right? I gave up that corporate leadership because it's not something that I really thought. There's definitely benefit, right? There's wonderful people there, but just for me and my sanity, just wasn't the right type of leadership that I was looking for. There's definitely things that I learned, but yeah, I'm gonna challenge you, and I'm gonna pull it out of you. So you think you're not, but you are, because I'm in the same boat. I don't hold a current leadership position, but I've ran a couple teams, But
we could always think of leadership in the family sense, though.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was saying, man. I'm telling you.
I did. Hey, I told you, I'm not. As far as work goes, I'm not a leadership position, but I do know who I am, and I do know what I am, and I tend to fall into
you do
a
in
leader.
This, it automatically makes you.
I tend to fall into that leader position because, like I said, I am not the smartest person, but I'm surrounded by people that help make everybody smart when it comes to work.
Which you should do, right?
Yes, exactly. I've heard that multiple times from very amazing speakers.
So leadership. So I guess the difficulties in when building a team, I'll take the experience that I had. you know, from careers and stuff like that. And most recently, you know, held a leadership position, you know, over a substantial amount of people, right? People older than me, people younger than me, whatever. Um, I think that and I know the difficulties for me at that in that period of time was, um, I consider myself a nice person.
I would think so.
Um, I don't, like I said, I work on empathy and sympathy and being able to relate to people. I work on that. I really like to put myself in other people's shoes to kind of feel how they would feel. Unfortunately, in the sense of leadership, it is important to do that type of stuff. But for me, it hindered my ability to be able to hold somebody accountable because, and I was young. I was younger than I am now. I mean, that was probably 5 years ago.
Okay.
So, and I was in that position for like a year and a half, 2 years. So I guess 6 years. So, I mean, I was younger. I had leadership experience everywhere that I went, you know, not trying to brag myself up, but the jobs that I held, I was always either in a leadership position or I was moving into a leadership position.
Same.
And so, I had a little bit of experience, but that was my first time actually leading a large team. You know, we're talking, you know, over 100 something people, right? So it's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so for me, when I got into that position, it was difficult for me to hold somebody accountable. And because I had done that job, I had done the duties that they had done, and I know how things get, you know, slipped, how things get missed, how I knew that I guess some of the pains that they were going through, but looking, you know, after it kind of like grown a little bit more, see like a little longer in that position, my job isn't to, I guess you have to relate to them to a certain extent, but you have to be able to progress them forward. And so if I'm allowing them to do things that aren't benefiting them to their best abilities to help them grow the most that they can, I'm hindering their growth by not holding them accountable. But I didn't know that in the moment. I thought I was, well, if I, you know, call them out for this, I'm hurting their feelings. What if they quit? And then thinking of all these scenarios that could happen. None of them ever did when I started holding people accountable. But for me, the biggest difficulty was, it was like, I didn't want to hurt people's feelings. I didn't want to, you know, I didn't want to alienate, feel like target people. But the more I grew into that position and as a leader, it was easier for me to say, okay, don't look at it from a point of attack, look at it from a point of growth. So if I want to help them develop and grow and be better, this is the only way they will ever do that. Because if you just shovel it underneath the table, don't say anything, you know, they'll be the same person forever. And so that was me. That was my like journey of, you know, leadership growth. And when it came to my family, I mean, that's something that I still work on a daily basis. You know, I don't consider myself like the greatest leader. You know, sometimes when you have two people that are great people, Tay-Tay's a great person. She's, you know, has done a lot of things by herself. She's, you know, she's super strong, so she can lead herself. I have total confidence. And so when you get that dynamic together, sometimes, you know, what we ended up finding in our relationship was that because we'd both been through so much, you know, I had tried to lead and then she was leading. So it was like this like pull back and forth. And so we had established that like there are certain parts, you know, I'll let her take lead. But the biggest thing was like, I need to be able to lead this family. I need to be able to do this. And so we had to work on that. We had to find the right dynamic that worked for us. Doesn't necessarily mean it works for everybody else, but for us, the way that we've set it up for our family, that's working. And so, but I need to be able to lead from the front as well when it comes to her and my kiddo, because I'm ultimately the example.
Yeah.
If I don't hold it accountable, is kind of like, you know, difficult with children because you should be holding them accountable at all moments of life. That's how they get better. So, but that's was difficult as well for me because I'd been through a rough childhood. Da 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 da. I'm gonna be a little more lenient. Well, guess what? That doesn't help her when she's
No.
20, 18. You know, if I don't hold her accountable, hey, to clean her room, to do the dishes, to to be a little stronger. If she falls, daddy can't just come, comfort you all the time. Like you need to be, well, oh, this person hurt me. Well, I can't go to your school and do anything about it. You need to take accountability of what you did, fix the situation, da 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 da. So all these different things that have bled into like my personal life, right? And okay, she didn't listen, she didn't clean her room. This just happened yesterday. Quick story, and then I'll bounce it to you. But when it came to the family, taking ownership and accountability and leadership of my family. Tay went to go get her hair did. I was here with Gamry. Gamry was going on a play date. And, Taylor told me, hey, I told Gamry she's got to clean her room before she goes or she can't go to her friend's house. Okay, cool, thanks. Make sure she gets it done. Okay, thanks. I'll make sure. She told Gamry like 3 or 4 times. Long story short, it didn't happen. I didn't know about it. I spaced it. There was other things on my mind. Gamry didn't do what she needed to do. I still took her to, her play date. I was out and about. Taylor got home. First thing I hear when I get home, 5 hours later, I'm, irritated. Oh, what happened? I'm like, all right, oh, what? Like, why are you irritated? What's going on? Thinking like somebody did something. Oh, well, Gamry didn't clean her room. I was like, oh, shoot. And in that moment, I tell you, it would have been so easy to be like, well,
I told her,
and I'm doing other stuff. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I'm not, but we're working on it. And so I was like, I want to be a leader. Guess where leadership starts? With yourself.
And accountability.
And so I said, and it's verbatim, I take full accountability. You told me I should have held her accountable. That's on me. I'll deal with the situation. I'll talk to her, and we'll move forward. When I tell you that I believe somebody hearing that, just you taking accountability for a situation, can diffuse a lot. It does.
Oh, it really does.
And so, yeah, man, that's kind of what happened. That's how I literally yesterday that we were able to kind of work that situation and all got dealt with it. There's some repercussions and things that we are going to hold her accountable to today. But ultimately, the day wasn't ruined. It was, we had a conversation. We addressed it. I took accountability of what I didn't do right. And ultimately, because I've read Extreme Ownership, he talks about it's a mission. The mission was to get the room clean and make sure that got done. Guess what? As a leader, the mission failed because I didn't do my part. Take accountability. We fix the situation. We think of how we're going to fix it next time, how we're going to do immediately, and we move forward. Yep. That's what we did.
Yep.
And so, yeah, man, that's just a quick little story, but I'll bounce it back to you, man. I know that you've got leadership experience. I know that. Relate it however you want, whether it be to family or to your career.
There was a point in time where I was a leader. I was only over 4 people maybe. But, at the time I was young and was friends with most of them. And it turned into being friends with most of them, which when it came to some of their actions, holding them accountable, I wasn't good at. Because I didn't want to ruin a friendship. Oh, I have a good friendship with this guy. I don't want to ruin it, Oh, well, he works another job. He came in 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late, da 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 da. In hindsight, he's a great guy. He generally always shows up to work on time. Like, it's not a big deal. And even to this day, I know he's always early. And it wasn't who he was. It was just the circumstances he was dealing with. But I still should have held that person accountable, or any of my people that I was working with held accountable. That was really the last time I was in like a full-on leadership role. Moving forward, it was just all I was a grunt per se, but still a leader of it. And even to this day, I'm not really a leader of anybody. Not to say that I wouldn't, but I also, at this point where I've moved to, I would definitely hold people to a different standard. And when they come to talk to me about things, even though I'm not the leader, I'm approachable. I'm surrounded by, I'm not the smartest, but as a collective, we all become the smartest. And because I'm so willing to help and so honest, they like to come to me. At least that's what I think. Maybe I'm completely wrong there. But together, I make sure to hold them accountable for what they're doing and help them through their situation, as in my eyes, a leader should, which they hold me accountable. Hey, this was your fault. Yep, you're right. 100% it was. So, but as far as the family, I'm kind of the same as you. I have, my wife. She's an extremely strong person, strong personality, which is great. And
It's definitely it balances each other, right? You have to, you both can be it, I guess, but yeah, sometimes it's,
for the most part, we both know where each other's roles are. We know where things go. We're still working on the parenting thing. I mean, you're 12, 13 years into it, something like that, and I'm a firm believer. It doesn't matter how old your kids are, you're never gonna stop learning because they're ever evolving, growing, and learning. So you need to be there with them. Even to this point, it doesn't matter. I'm only 8 years, but with two kids, they're completely different. You still need to have your boundaries and hold them accountable, but going about it might be different per child. So as far as the leadership goes, we do the same thing. We kind of balance each other out. We know where it is. And same thing, if she comes home and, hey, the dishes aren't done. Yeah, you're right. I didn't do those. That's, instead of being like, well, I was tired. I decided I wanted to lay down, do this, it's just, yeah, I didn't do them.
right.
But, I take the accountability for it. Same with, cleaning and this and that. I mean, everything. I do everything in my power to take accountability for what I've done, even down to the way I speak. It's, yeah, and that one's the hardest, I think, for me still, is the way I speak to certain, kind of anybody sometimes. But hey, you're right. I shouldn't have gone about it that way. Sometimes you end up acting like a 2-year-old when you're 30 something years old. But, as far as it goes, yeah, that's my main thing, is like leading my family right now. But I've also, through all my reading and listening and, watching people, I've learned how I want to hold people accountable. And those are things I'm working on doing.
Nice.
So,
Good, man. I think, yeah, that's, you hit it on the, nail on the head again. I think it's important to look at those things and address them, and then find a dynamic that works for every different team. Because not, you talked about, the kids dealing with them differently. That's essentially the role of a manager or whatever, any leadership position you're going to hold. I can't talk to somebody. I can't hold somebody accountable the same way I would hold somebody else. Maybe you might in some aspects, but there are different ways to deal with different people. And the faster people can realize that is that not everybody's the same. Not everybody's going to react and take your feedback the way that you might want, somebody else might. So the faster you can evolve that skill set to say, okay, I need to look at everybody as an individual. But that's where leadership comes into play, right? Because as a leader, you should know everybody. If I come in trying to lead you and I'm like, I don't really know him, but then I come in and yelling at you, you're like, what's up, dude? Like, you want to get down or something? Because maybe I don't respond like that.
Right.
Don't get in my face like that. It doesn't work for me.
right.
You know what I mean? Talk to me straight, give it to me straight, but don't yell at me and think that you're gonna get a good response. Like,
to me, you can hold everybody accountable to the same standard, but how you approach and discipline each person might be slightly different.
Bingo.
Your disciplines might be the same, but how you go about talking to that person is where, in my opinion, accountability and leadership are going to go together, because you're holding them accountable, but you're doing it in the way that is not going to cause excessive problems, I guess. Sometimes it's just going to happen. You're just going to be dealt with that way. You know, as far as a team aspect, you need to be, in my eyes, again, you guys got to remember, this is all through either my eyes or Ben's eyes when we're talking about this stuff, okay? In my eyes, in any team, you know, they always talk about the team's only as good as their weakest link.
Yep.
So if you're going to take, if you happen to be that weakest link, start taking accountability for yourself. Start, you know, you mess something up, yeah, that's my fault. You know, I did that. Instead of being like, well, what the heck, why did this go this way? Well, I did that. That was me. That was my fault.
Right.
You know, in a team aspect, in my opinion, that's almost where you need to be the most accountable. Team being your family or work team, you need to be accountable for what you're saying you're going to do, how you're going to get it done, and if you mess it up, by all means, that's your number one accountability thing, in my opinion, is take that, say, I messed this up.
Right.
We need to move on.
I agree. And always know that the accountability doesn't always, I know sometimes in my head, I would look at this, it's like leadership's here, the leader's here, and then, you know, everybody else is here. Okay, that's a good, I guess, visualization, what most people would see when they hear leader. But think about it like this. The accountability part, like you said, starts with the weakest link.
Yep.
That link isn't always at the bottom.
No.
And so as a leader, we go back to self-accountability. If your team is failing, take accountability of why your team is failing.
Yes, I was going to say this.
And move and then address other people's and hold others accountable. But it starts with you.
Yep.
If you're just the guy that comes in like, you guys, we're not meeting this, we're failing in this, and then you're not the first one to call out that where you lacked awareness or lacked the leadership to help them progress forward, dude, they're gonna look at you and be like, and there will be one person. They'll be like, well, what happened with this? And if you got that ego in you, you'll take that as an attack, and you'll lose half of your team. I know it because I did it.
Yep.
I only speak from experience. I did it. Let my ego take charge of it. Somebody called me out in front of, because he decided to call me out in front of everybody, so I called him back out. It was a bad situation. It didn't work out in my favor, but I look back and I said I could have just taken full ownership. And like, yeah, like you're completely right. I need to do a better job of this, this, and this. That's my job. I will make sure that I work on these things, and these are things that I will fix.
Yep.
And then I guarantee they would have been like, okay, I can agree because you showed vulnerability. You showed ownership of that. They, you know, maybe not, but some of them, the true leaders, will come up and be like, I take accountability for that, man. I take ownership for what happened there. You got my back. I got your back.
This kind of reminds me of when I was in that leadership role, you know, because they'd come to me, you know, as being the manager, quote, quote, manager.
Yeah.
They would come to me, whoever was above me, my outside sales rep, whatever, they'd come to me. And at that time, again, I was not good with accountability at all. They'd come to me, I'd be like, well, this person didn't do this person didn't do this, instead of being like, you know, you're right, I'll get it fixed. Because ultimately it was my fault because I wasn't directing that person to do their job and or holding them accountable. I was going to say exactly what you said, a little bit different terms, but yeah, ultimately the way I view it and the way I will do it moving forward when I have a team is, I'm going to take accountability from who's coming to me. Yep. You know, we messed up. I messed up. Whatever. We'll get it fixed. We'll get the problem taken care of. What can we do to resolve this? What can we do to help you? And then after I get that situation solved, then I would go to my team and say, hey, this is an issue we're having. where do we need to, where was our weak link? What can we do to fix this? Who's, not in maybe those exact words, but something to that extent. You need to hold that accountability, which, where I work, they do that pretty good amount of the time. They take the brunt of the people yelling, da 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 da, and then they come to us and say, "Hey, we need to figure this out." End of the day, that's ultimately how my eyes view it and how it should be done. Because if the leader's just pointing back at everybody, oh well, this guy was sick, this guy took a week off, I just, I had a week off. Nothing's gonna solve. Nothing's gonna change. And you need to be able to hold that accountability right at the front and then move back.
Exactly.
Even with kids, even. That person comes up and starts yelling at you, hey, whoa, okay, my kid messed up. I'll go deal with them. I'll handle it. I appreciate you coming to tell me, whether it's the principal, whatever. Your kid pushed mine, okay, whatever. That's my kid. It's my responsibility. I'll go take care of it. Appreciate you coming to tell me. And go and talk to your kid, hey, this isn't how shit goes down here. We don't do this.
Right.
Most parents are like, well, kids are kids. Anyways, but yeah, 100% leadership, take accountability.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you 100%. And you hit on it. That'll flow into the next topic here, which is, kind of the community, the way that the societal ownership is set up currently. And
we'll keep this short because I could go on forever about this one.
We'll keep it short because there's issues, right? But it starts with us, and it leads into that, right? Which is where, for me, the way it goes back to the same thing: accountability with yourself. If you don't hold that accountability to yourself right now, when you don't have a team, it still affects everybody around you. Whether you think you have a team or not, it's not always a position. It's not always a label. There's not always a label to it. You are a leader, whether people choose to believe it or not. Somebody's watching you, whether it be a kid, a friend, a neighbor. They're looking at you. And so
I actually have a story with this in a minute.
Hit on it. But if you do not hold yourself accountable when you're out and about, when you're just doing your regular things in today's community, the people will see that. The more you hold yourself accountable, I guarantee you your life will change. And watch the people that start flowing into your life. Watch the leaders, the people that are doing exceptional things come into your life because you're putting that out. You're that energy that, like, winners don't want to be around losers. Let's just call it what it is.
Yep.
And if you're winning, you're really holding yourself accountable. Dude, I'm telling you, people will start flowing into your life. You're like, why am I meeting this person? Like, what the heck? Well, it's because you're doing the right, and it's maybe not always like so in your face, but I'm telling you, like, in today's society, we need to be able to hold yourself accountable first before you start pointing your finger at everybody else. And we hit on this already, I know that, but I'm just saying in today's community, it's so easy to say, well, my life is effed up because of this.
Yep.
My situation sucks because of this president, because of this whatever, like, choose your freaking excuse. Hold yourself accountable it's as small as, and I told Gary this, I'll tell my story, then you tell yours. My quick story was, I won't say the name of the place, but they sell large amounts of stuff, 50 million paper towels for cheaper value. You put one and two together, but they sell in bulk. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get some stuff for bulk, cheap, Well, it was snowing. It was one of the first snows that we had here in Utah, and I'm walking in. I have Gamry with me. It's a quick get what we need, come out. And when I tell you, bro, we had probably walked past, 12 carts maybe, like, just shoved in the middle aisle. So I was like, man, once again, working on my empathy, working on, putting myself in other people's shoes. The cart guy don't get paid enough.
Yep.
And I'm like, dude, it's snowing. I get it. It sucks. You want to just get in your car and go. Gamry's with him. I was like, I need to take ownership of it. I'm not just going to complain about it because I'm like, look at all these carts. She's like, oh my gosh, so many carts. Well, guess what? We get to the car. I'm not trying to boast myself up. I'm just telling you a story, but I'm like, okay, put her in the car, put everything away. And I'm like, I'll be right back. She's like, where are you going? I'm going to put those carts back and I'm going to go put mine. She's like, you're going to take everybody's carts? I'm like, yeah. She's like, why? Because nobody else is going to do it.
Yep.
Maybe the worker's going to do it, but I'll just do it now. I can do it. I'm going that way anyways. I told Gary the story, man, I'm like, I'm walking to my, picking cars up as I'm going. I'm pretty far out. I parked pretty far. I was in the Challenger, so I parked pretty far out there. And I get to the last 3 carts. Dude, when I tell you, I shit you not, this guy comes up, young guy, probably my age, puts the cart, maybe a little older, puts the cart in, I'm from maybe 20 feet from him. So he sees me getting everybody's carts. It's not like I'm just pushing my own. Puts his cart there and just walks away. I'm like, really, dude? It's right there, man. And he just walks away. And I'm like, I guess you're just lazy, right? And so I get his cart and I push him back. And there's an old man in one of the very first stalls, old, probably 70, 80. And he sees the interaction. He's in the handicapped place. You could tell he's moving slow. He finishes things, takes his cart back. I'm like, if he can do it, a 30, 40-year-old can't do it? Come on, dude. But I had to take ownership of this. I couldn't just walk away because if I'm just going to complain about it, that's not going to change the situation.
Nope.
And so I took ownership. I was like, okay, I don't like the situation. I don't like the way it looks. I'm going to fix it. Yep. And so, yeah, man, that's kind of my quick story on today's society.
Yeah, don't get me started on society.
Anyways, hit on your story, brother.
Mine was mine's going to go into the gym culture because that's a huge part of my life right now. I started 75 hard at the beginning of January, so I'm 21 days in. I think today's the 21st. I don't really pay a whole lot of attention.
21?
Yeah, 21 days in. And I've been consistent for, what did we decide, 3 years now almost? This will be 3 this year, I think.
Yeah, it's 3 for sure.
So, and I've gotten to the point that I re-rack everything. I used to leave, leg press, used to leave a weight or 2 on there. Which, in the end, it's really not that bad to leave a 45 or something on there. But I get to the point now that I re-rack everything. And not only do I re-rack everything, I change my labels. I make sure everything's facing the direction that it should be. So you can read it, which it's a label, but it's a sense of, it's a guideline I'm holding for myself. But the amount of people that go there that cannot hold themselves accountable to put their own weights away or pick up their garbage is ridiculous. And I swear people look at me like I'm weird because I've re-racked people's weights. I will organize the weights because my accountability is I don't want to have to do that when I go to that machine. And there was a guy the other day. The only reason I didn't say anything is I was in such a shitty mood that I could not, for the life of me, figure out how to say it in a nice enough tone that wouldn't have possibly got me kicked out of the gym. That's literally the only reason I didn't, because I know myself and I know how I can talk and I know how I can come across. And I'm not out for a fight, but I wanted to hold this guy accountable so bad because not only did he leave a plate or 2 on the ground, he left 4 plates on, I say plates, but it was really a 45 and a 25 on the squat rack. And then he went to leg press and left 5 plates on each side and just walked away. He didn't wipe his shit down. He didn't put his weights away. And again, the only reason I didn't call him out because I know myself. But come on, people, hold yourself accountable. Put your weights back the way they go, just like the shopping carts. Put the damn things back. You guys will not hold accountability for yourself. Well, somebody's going to come do it. No, do it for your goddamn self. Please, for the life of you, just do it. You will feel better. I have gotten to that same point that I will grab a cart or I will walk the extra distance to put it away. Or if I'm walking through the gym and I see garbage, I don't walk past it. I pick the damn thing up because the accountability is I want to keep shit clean.
Yep.
You know, hold yourself accountable, guys. Like, society is falling because people are so effing lazy. I will say that the nicest way possible. Be accountable. Hold yourself accountable. You drop something, pick the goddamn thing up. You go to the store and you don't want the product. If you're 10 aisles away from it and you're checking out, just be honest with the person there. Instead of throwing it in the candy and shit, just say, hey, I decided I didn't want this. Yeah, it sucks, but they have a whole bin of people that are either can't afford it or decide that. And yes, again, accountability. If I'm walking around the store, I'll go put it back myself. I mean, we were at Hobby Lobby the other day with my wife, and we were at the front of the store, and I was like, hey, you don't want this one? She's like, no, I decided I don't. I walked all the way to the back and put it back where it belonged rather than just throwing it on the shelf. It's not that difficult, people. Just be accountable for your actions. Be accountable for what you're doing, and quit being lazy fucks.
Well said, brother. I think that's a good way to move on from, because this could be a whole freaking 2-hour pod if we go into too far into deeper. But it is very true. Just hold yourself accountable. Do the little things in life. And we can start restoring our community the way that it was supposed to be, and we want it to look like. Okay.
Resistance. What kind of resistance have you had to hold yourself accountable?
Resistance?
I can think of a story of
Go
mine,
for it, man.
So, the biggest resistance that I've had to overcome is time. And when I say time, I mean time management and getting up to do what I need to do in a timely manner. You know, but the viewers might not. Currently I work a 6 to 4:30 job Monday through Thursday, sometimes Fridays. And my wife works when I get home. So for me, if I'm going to hold myself accountable and show up to the gym, I had to push past the resistance of when am I going to go. So people think I'm crazy. I show up to the gym, especially now, around 4:20 in the morning. So the resistance to continue to sleep and continue to hit snooze, I have to overcome that damn near every day, including to come here. I mean, we record this early in the morning. I went to the gym before. So same thing. I had to hold myself accountable and overcome that resistance to get up and get my ass to the gym and get here. So every single day I am overcoming that resistance. And that includes going outside to walk. That includes reading. That includes, everything is a resistance. But those are the three main ones. Time and time management. There was a third, and those are the two main ones, I guess.
I love
time and time management.
I love it, dude. That's great insight. You know, time management definitely is something that
we'll have a whole podcast on that at some point, I promise.
Yes, and it's something that people struggle with. I struggle with it. You struggle with it, and I think that's a good, definitely resistance for me. Ego, man. My ego is a huge part of resisting accountability because, like I said, for me, it is an ego hit when I take accountability for certain things. Like I said, I'm not putting it out to anybody else, holding people accountable. I guess, that part of it is kind of the same thing. It's just, I don't want to hurt people's feelings, but for the sake of owning it for myself, my biggest is overcoming my sense of ego of like, well, it's not really my fault, but why should I take it? Like, why should I accept it? Like, why should I have to fix it? Why, all these things used to run and still sometimes run through my mind. I worked through them in real time and said, okay, I can't think like that. I need to own the situation. It's the same thing with the cart thing, right? Easy to just be like, well, people are so lazy, and they get in my car and, well, if they're not going to do it, why do I have to take their cards back?
If it's the store I'm thinking of, they really should have more cart returns, though. Let's just be honest.
They should, but
anyways.
So yeah, that's kind of for me, it's ego, man. I think it's just being able to take the thought that I'm going to somehow affecting my self-confidence or my self-worth because I'm accepting that I, did this incorrectly or I didn't lead somebody the right way. That was, for me, the biggest resistance when it came to the accountability part. It was just getting myself out of the equation and just saying, it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to make a mistake and say, hey, like that didn't work out as well, but that's on me. That's okay. That was legitimately one of the biggest resistance that I had when it came to accountability.
I'm sitting here listening to you talk about ego. I personally don't feel like I have an ego, and maybe I've worked on humbling myself or never felt like I had an ego because I've never thought about that portion of this as far as an ego goes, because I've been fairly accountable my whole life. Fairly. I definitely held more on the blame people than hold myself accountable. But for me personally, accountability is super easy. It always has been since I really started clicking on it and working on myself. Accountability has been really easy, and maybe some of that is I can attribute to my wife because she decided she needed to hold herself accountable for what she was doing. Which growth, you either grow together or you're going to grow apart, and we have chosen to continue to grow together, even though we've had issues because all the issue I talked about in the beginning was far beyond her journey of growth, the start of it. But that's just something I just thought about. I don't feel like I have an ego. Maybe for some things I do, but I also always want to continue to learn, so I feel like I don't hold myself at a very high standard, which isn't always the best, but it makes accountability that much easier. You tell me something and I'm going to do it. I mean, I need to be better at certain things, but anyways, sorry.
No, definitely. I think that's it's good because it leads into the whole basis of this podcast in this episode of the podcast, right? Which is accountability is not there's just a one fits all for everybody. Just because you say, you're one of your biggest resistance is time management, and because I say, ego was one of my biggest resistance and is one of my biggest resistance, doesn't necessarily mean that everybody fits into that square.
Yeah.
Like, you need to be able to dig deep into why am I not holding myself accountable, and people really need to just take a step back. And I'm telling you, if you've never, seriously, next time you get in an argument with somebody or there's a confrontation, hold yourself accountable and see how that feels.
Listen up, guys. This is one of your challenges for the week, just to be clear.
Yeah, there you go. So the challenge for this next week is literally just when you're in a situation, you're in an argument, you're in a clash, I guess you're having that, and somebody's trying to, just somebody saying this is wrong, this should have been better. Take a step back and just say, you're right. Just that. You're right. I take accountability. Say those things out loud, and then see how you feel, see how you process it, see what your emotions you're feeling, and then work through the situation. And then you can be like, then take a step back, analyze that, and say, okay, why did I feel this way? Why am I feeling attacked? Or why is it easy for me to take accountability? Why is it so easy? Oh, well, because, listen to the story that you have in your head, because we all have stories, right?
Yes.
And so for me, I have total belief in everybody that at the very least, if you start holding yourself accountable with yourself in the situations that are happening and will happen in your life, I believe that we can actually start progressing forward and changing this like thought that it's everybody else's fault. And yes, not people are not perfect, but guess what? The easiest person to change is yourself.
Yep.
And so, what closing thoughts do you have, brother?
I was gonna say, just guys, do that challenge this week. If you're in an argument, whether it's your spouse, your boss, whatever, stop for a minute and think about what is going on and why you guys are arguing. If there is a reason, especially if it's something you did, hold yourself accountable. Like he said, say those words. Hey, it's my fault. I'm going to hold myself accountable. Let me go see what I can do to change the actions, change the future. So that's the big thing, guys. Just hold yourself accountable, whether it's today, tomorrow, sometime this week. Do something. If you mess up, just own up to it. I have found personally, especially with where I work currently and anything farther, if you come to me and you're like, hey, I messed up. This was my fault. I'm going to be so much less pissed than if I just go and find it and it's like, what the hell happened? Just be honest. Just own up, guys.
Love it. Well, thanks, brother, for another great episode. Guys, we appreciate you guys, listen to us today and listen to the journey, listen to this great podcast of accountability. Hope you guys got something great. If you did, like the video, comment on it. Tell us some of your experiences of accountability or things that we can work on, things that you've found in your life, and then share it. Share the video. It helps us grow. It helps us spread this word of the work that we're trying to do, this journey we're trying to share with everybody else. And we appreciate you guys and really love you guys for supporting us. And we'll catch you guys on the next video.